Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me. There's very little I can do about it if you can't. But you're just going to have to bear with me while I figure out how to share my screen and get the slideshow going. It's coming. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about Sangha Lodge, if the slideshow will ever start. There it goes. I can't really tell you much about Central Africa without explaining to you exactly where it is and where we are geographically. So Central Africa is, as you see, right in the center of Africa, as the name implies. There are only two countries that have the exact location described in their country name. It's Central African Republic and South Africa. So Central Africa is larger than France, or more or less the size of France, and it's surrounded by land. Chad to the north, Sudan and South Sudan to the east, Democratic Republic of Congo to the south, and Republic of Congo and Cameroon to the another border on the south and to the east. I will use a laser pointer. Here we go. And for Sangha Lodge is situated in the Dzanga Sangha protected area. If we just go back, slide, that would be right here in this little corner, bordered on this side by the Republic of Congo and on this side by Cameroon. And Sangha Lodge is just above the village of Bayanga, where the red dot is now on this river confluence here. This is the Bobongo River. Okay, how I got there was I was a bird tour operator, and I used to run tours around Southern Africa. And then when independence came, when in 1994, the universal franchise came finally to South Africa, and we could start to travel into Africa. I headed north as quickly as I could and ended up leading trips in several countries within Africa, but found Gabon particularly interesting. So Gabon is where I really got hooked on rainforest and Central Africa in particular. And in this area, I was leading bird tours, and I was asked to lead some primate tours. The Gabon trips weren't going so well, and I started then looking for places where I could find gorillas. That led me to the Odzala National Park in 2001, and this was my first trip to Odzala National Park. Any of you, and there are several of you here who have been to Odzala, will not recognize this. This is actually the dining area at Mboma camp, as it was in those days. Very small, but very, very quaint. And so in Odzala, you'd have to go upriver to Maya North on these large pirogues. Katrina Hecker, sitting in front of me there, is also listening to this webinar tonight. And this was in 2001. You sat in these huge dugouts with armchairs put in them. It was quite nice. And you took a 6-hour boat ride to the first camp, and then a 3-hour boat ride after that. Then you hiked. You saw elephants on the way. You can't stop a boat, by the way, when you've got an elephant in front of you. So it's quite a panic for the boat driver. And then we used to get to these bays. This is gorillas at a bay called Maya Nor. Okay, and then things changed in Congo. So I was running trips to there and to Nubali and Doki National Park. And they had Ebola in 2003, which brought an abrupt end to our trips. And after that, the park went through several problems, and it wasn't run very well until CCC and Africa Parks took over conservation and tourism, respectively. During this time, once the Ebola had hit, I started looking for another location, and we found this Central African Republic and Dzanga Sangha to be a perfect spot. It had this area, Dzanga Bai, as part of the big attraction. Dzanga Bai is the best elephant experience in the world. More about that later. It also had the most phenomenal people, the Baaka people. And I started running trips into this area and really fell in love with the area. Then in 2009, I found this a lodge that belonged to a hunter, trophy hunter, who wasn't using it. And so I exchanged some money and a long conversation, and we took this over and we've bought the hunting rights. We don't hunt there anymore. We've turned it into a tourist lodge. And so we were running then the regular tours into the park to see elephants, Dzanga Bai, etc., just as we would always had done, until 2012, when there was a coup d'etat in the north of the country. Well, it started in 2012, December the 1st, and then pushed south 2013. We, on the 26th of March 2013, the rebel Seleka forces overran Bangui. South Africans may recall it was called the Battle of Bangui, where 16 South African soldiers were killed. They overran Bangui and we had to leave the country. It came about that we were prepared to stay, but our staff came to us at night and asked us to please leave. So we slowly, we got in our boat, packed up as much as we could, and we headed downriver in the dark to Congo. It was at this time, we had time in South Africa, and during this time we were very depressed. We ran out of money because we'd left a lot of assets behind. We'd had no real income because cancellations during the coup. And so we were kind of stuck in South Africa as looking at ways of earning money. And I met some clients of ours. They came they were passing through Johannesburg, the Lindberghs, and they had a meeting with me, dinner at the airport hotel. And during that time, then in the discussion, they said they wanted to help me get back here. And they gave me a very generous donation that helped me get back. But the donation was cash, and that helped in the short term. But what they really helped me with was they gave me the confidence. They inspired me to come back, and the belief that other people would believe in me and help me on. So, and I put out an appeal to friends and past clients, and lots of people helped, and we had a crowdfunding campaign or two over the next 2 years. People like Colin Bell, Adam Riley, too many people to mention, helped over the next 2 years. And then we went on. So this happened while we were away. This was a real deciding factor that made us come back. I'm going to move on quickly. That was 26 elephants were killed at this place. This is a sacred ground. This is Dzanga Bai, the most fantastic elephant experience in the world. It was a disaster of a day for us when these elephants got killed, the 6th of May, I believe, 2013. And that was what really drove us to come back. There was no presence. The local population had felt abandoned, we believed. And we came back, and for a while it was just myself and my brother was there with me for the first 3 months. Tam came back after 3 months. And the local Catholic priest, Adam, Father Adam, and his volunteer, whose name ironically was Eve. So they had Adam and Eve and myself and my brother. We came back. The first thing I had to do was to go and meet with the rebel commander, the Seleka commander. This is me with a bunch of the Seleka rebels. Commander is actually standing right behind me, opening the door of the car. But we made peace with them, and we had a hierarchy, so it was not scary at all. At no time during those years did I ever feel threatened by either of the two rebel groups that were there. Okay, so the rebels, the Seleka people lasted about 9 months, and while we were there, and then they were overthrown and fled north, destroying everything in their wake, all the communications, and stealing all the cars they could get their hands on, and fled north back into the north of the country and Chad and Sudan, whence they'd come from. Then we had the anti-Balaka. Now these guys were a little less disciplined, but considered themselves the liberators, but they were also rebels. They were thugs. And these two guys came to our, these three guys, I should say, came to our camp and were walking up the stairs into the lodge. And my staff came running up saying, "Oh, the Seleka are coming." They were terrified of these, of the Seleka, the anti-Balaka are coming. They were terrified of them. And I ran down to the camp, down the stairs, and they were coming upstairs. I've got about 20 stairs that come up from the river to my camp. And they were coming up the stairs, and I screamed at the top of my voice, "No guns are allowed in my camp. These arms are interdit. Les armes sont interdit." And they looked at me and they went, "But we are the anti-Balaka." I said, "I don't care. There are no guns allowed in my camp." And they went back down to the bottom of the stairs, and they stood there. And there was quite a lot of tension, and I went down and then I discovered I had a friend that was really ready to help me. This little guy, his name is Cassidy. I'd inherited him from a fisherman who'd raised him, and he was as tame as anything, and he loved people. It's a slender-nosed Kusimans, which is a kind of a mongoose, but he was just over friendly. So when he came down the stairs and these guys were all cross with me, he ran straight to the guy in the middle and climbed up his leg. There you can see the Kusimans in his hands there, and you can see the smile erupting on his face, and that broke the ice, and things went on from there. So that's how we survived the anti-Balaka, and they left and never returned. There's Cassidy. Well done, Cassidy. And so while the anti-Balaka were there, the anti-Balaka period for about a year, that was a terrible time with ethnic cleansing. They drove all the Muslims, these are the Fulani people from the north, the women, who've walked down to the Cameroon border to cross into Cameroon. Boatloads of them were coming south. These boats heavily overloaded. That's a barge that belonged to the Catholic Church in the provincial capital, coming down just loaded with Fulani people to take them to Cameroon to safety. These is an example of refugee camps. You're not allowed to photograph them. We weren't allowed to anyway, but they're at the back. These are some Fulani from our area that we met while we were traveling through Cameroon a while later. The good news is the Fulani have been able to return now. Some of them are returning. They're coming back with a big repatriation movement and a lot of reconciliation in our area, which is good news. And during that time, we started working with consultants who were working for the WWF to help them put surveillance systems on the roof at the Bai, working with the internet cameras, the remote cameras that were controlled through the internet. We also gathered intelligence and on shooting and poaching around the area, and direct information from Tam and myself led to the arrest of the poacher who poached this elephant. The ivory he probably would have got a couple of $100 for, but the meat underneath that he'd smoked, he probably would have got $1,000 for. So actually he was poaching more for meat than ivory. Also at that time we started rehabbing small animals. We started with the blue duiker and we got a few things. This is a Demidov's Galago. Tam hand raised this, we called him Porky. It's a brush-tailed porcupine, the cutest animals we ever had. Just stank, but he was very cute. We've done owls, we've raised several other things, but the most important thing we started handling were pangolins. We over the years have rescued nearly 100 pangolins now, mainly adult pangolins, and that we released straight as early as possible. But we've had a few others. That's Tam with a black belly pangolin. Adult pangolins and young animals that we released straight away. And then we got this guy. This is the smallest pangolin we'd had at the time. This is Pangi. Pangi became an ambassador, and through Pangi, we started really started considering to start a project on pangolins, which has developed into the Sangha Pangolin Project, which you will hear more about on the 28th. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. We have Tessa Ullman and Maya Guruhus giving us a talk on the 28th at this forum, and they'll go more into it. But it's a worthwhile reason for staying there. Okay, so that's basically the history of how we got to where we are now. So since the coup d'etat and things have calmed down, we've gone back into tourism. Our main attractions are gorillas, obviously. We have 3 groups of habituated gorillas there. We have, and you can get really close, you get some really nice pictures. We have Dzanga Bai. Dzanga Bai is the ultimate elephant experience in the world. I'm sorry if anybody thinks otherwise, but it is the ultimate elephant experience in the world. From if anybody has ever seen forest elephants on any documentary in the world, Discovery Channel, National Geographic, the 99% chance they were filmed at Dzanga Bai. It is a fantastic place. On any day, you can see anything from 50 to 150 elephants at any one time, with numbers generally building up in the afternoon, and even late at night they build up. And now they've allowed us to start sleeping at the Bai, so we are allowing people to go out and spend the night there if they so wish. It's just a bit uncomfortable, but the experience is fantastic to wake up to this sunrise. This is the sunrise in the morning at Dzanga Bai. And as you can see, elephants everywhere. Forest elephants are slightly smaller than savanna elephants, but when you come across one on a forest trail, you wouldn't notice, I promise you. They're still big, and they're still very dangerous. The other animals you can get at Dzanga Bai include these phenomenal antelope, bongos, giant forest hog we get occasionally, but actually quite often, red river hogs occasionally, sitatunga from time to time, and several great birds, also black and white colobus. But it's really an elephant experience. This is about an hour condensed into 5 minutes of video. Anybody who's alert will notice the one elephant in the front there actually had a collar on. They collared some elephants in the last 12 months to see what the movements are, and it's quite interesting that they do travel quite far, but they like to stay in the protected areas, so they head from here into the protected areas in Congo. When they do drift out, they tend to disappear, so we don't like that. And they'll fight over these holes with minerals in, and one will dominate, as you see. And then, you know, another bigger one will come along and that'll push them out there like that. And so on. And they're here for the mineral salts, and they've been coming here for thousands of years. It's a phenomenal experience. It's just phenomenal. And then the third, we have the nicest people. We have the best people in the world. These are the Ba'aka people. the forest people. They're really at home in the forest. They are true hunter-gatherers. They still are hunter-gatherers. Although they are now 21st century people who try to get educations and are trying to improve themselves in 20th century lifestyles, trying to get radios and everything that a 21st century person will want. They are really still hunter-gatherers, and they're fantastic people to go in the forest with. That guy is about to go. He's climbing a tree to get honey, and this woman is gathering nuts, and she's opening nuts with an inverted machete. Beautiful children. And they live in these little igloo huts in the forest when they go in forest camps. And I've spent some weeks in the forest with them. It's phenomenal experience. They are just at one with the forest and part of the ecosystem. They hunt with nets, nets made with a vine from the forest that only catches small antelopes like duikers, red duikers, blue duikers. Porcupines, sometimes the odd mongoose or stuff will get caught in there as well, but it's mainly going for porcupines and duikers. And it's on its own, it would be fully sustainable. The problem at the moment is that there are too many roads going through the forest nowadays, and the access for people with guns is too high, and it's so much easier to shoot at night with a spotlight, with a gun. And so the forests are getting depleted by the Bantu, and the Baaka are really getting hungry. They're getting starving. They're starving. So we like to support the Baaka wherever we can. They're just great people. Beautiful people living in igloos. Yeah. And as you can see, they're not very tall. And this is me taken a long time ago, when my hair was still black, and my hair and beard were still blackish. And this is my friend Chris Murray, who talked to you a bit earlier. He's a bit shorter than me, but the Baaka is still quite a short guy. Okay, I wouldn't be able to give a talk on anywhere without putting in some birds, as I'm a birder. African grey parrots, they're very common where we are. Unfortunately, they're also under threat. They're very popular in the bird trade, especially in Arab countries and the Far East. So they're still poached, although poaching has gone down since COP16, when they were put on the red data list on the CITES Appendix 1, with some exclusions. They're still heavily poached, but not where we are, knock on wood, yet. But down in Cameroon and Congo, a bit downriver from us, there have been several big seizures. And the friends of ours working in Congo have been effective in rehabbing and
I'm ready for bed when it's bedtime.
I
like waiting by the door till Sarah finishes work at 5:30. I'm like,
somebody's not on mute there. This is a grey-necked or red-headed rockfowl. This is one of the Congo basin specials. It's one of it's 1 in 2 in a unique family, a very in demand bird by birders all over. It breeds near where we are. We've to date found, well, when we did a bit of a survey in 2011, we found over 30 nests. So it's not uncommon at the right time of year in certain localities, in certain habitats. This is bristle-nosed barbet. Not supposed to occur where I am, but it didn't read the books. So it's a range extension, but it's not really. The habitat is there, it's going to be there. Crazy little bird. Red-bellied paradise flycatcher, stunner, a unique color race at us. Black guinea fowl. They're not uncommon, but they're very, very difficult to see, occasionally on the roadsides when you're driving through the forest. This is red-chested owlet, a little tiny owl. Emerald cuckoo. This is quite a widespread bird through Africa, but not very easy to get a photo like this. And then the rainforest has trees, and you'd be remiss not to mention the trees. To me, the trees are the most impressive things to visit our place for, even though everybody goes to see gorillas and elephants and everything else. I really think we have the most fantastic trees. The canopy where we are is above 50 meters in places. So you could say on average 50 meters, but 50 meters is really high. I think a 10-story building is about 30 meters. So you can imagine 50 meters is like a 15-story building. Go up to the 15th floor and look down. It's really high. And these are really high. This guy at the bottom, sorry, this was my good wife Tam, who's also watching. I hope she's not blushing. This is Bex and Lovo. Some of you may know him from Zimbabwe. Just really impressive. The root structure, the huge roots, the buttress roots on this tree, huge, like walls. That's Armar. He's not a pygmy. He's a normal-sized person standing behind the roots there. Yeah, that's Chris Murray. He could be called a pygmy, but not really. And yeah, this is a sapele. This is the most in-demand timber, the sapele mahogany for the logging companies. But huge, huge trees. Tam and I have been up this tree to 30 meters, hoisted up by a crazy Israeli rope climber. And 30 meters, we weren't halfway up. So it's huge. And then lovely waterfalls and places to swim, trekking. It's just a beautiful place where we live. We live in paradise. We can never get bored, honestly. The rivers are huge. The river in front of camp, this is it, is huge. We have kayaks, and we just live in paradise. Unfortunately, I'm in Pretoria and Tam's in paradise, but you know, this is it. That's my son Alon and some guests and friends behind in kayaks up one of the smaller rivers. It's a bit swampy and kind of reminiscent of the Delta or somewhere like that, where you get lesser gallinules and little bitterns and stuff flying around. So it's a unique habitat for us. We love going there from time to time. And some pygmy women who've been fishing. They fish for that's the Baaka woman, pygmy woman here. They fish for mudfish, barbel and lungfish in the mud by building little walls, and when the water recedes, the fish get trapped behind there. And this is our camp, the new lodge, as we have just redeveloped the whole lodge in the last year. This is our new deck and bar. So when you do come to visit, and I encourage you all to come after Corona, because it's only with tourist dollars that our conservation programs will survive. When you do come, you will be staying in a rather nice accommodation. The two girls in view are both worked for us on the Pangolin program. On the left is Julie. She's was an expert in communication. Unfortunately, she left in December, and I don't know, she might come back if she doesn't find another job at some point. The girl on the right is Tessa Uman, who will be giving a talk with Maya at the end of the month So these are our new rooms. I'll just look through these quickly. Very, very comfortable with mosquito nets, double beds. And thank you. This is my lodge. And now it's, I think, going to be open for questions. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I think I've got to stop sharing.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you all, if possible, to switch on your cameras and to unmute. Everybody, if you can. Your camera is on the bottom left and you unmute. So we're going to hear a lot of voices now. Beautiful to see you all. Oh,
Nice to see you, Chris.
lovely. Ah, isn't that fantastic? Unmute, switch on your camera. We want to see you. Okay. Okay. So there's still some people who are muted. Unmute yourself, even if your camera is not on, please.
Chris, I've unmuted myself, but my connection's unreliable, so that's why I've turned the camera off.
Ilse, you still unmuted? Are you muted? All right, ladies and gentlemen, just want to mention that we have had 62 viewers tonight. I want us all, before you give a round of applause, I want us all to give a round of applause, not just for Rod's presentation, for Rod, Tamar, Alon, the family, for having spent more than 12 years in very difficult circumstances, but with the aim of conserving and making a difference, also with the Baraka people. Having gone through a lot of suffering, but also a lot of good times. So the first, when we do a round of applause, we applaud them for who they are, for what they've done, and then we also applaud Rod Cassidy for his presentation tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, what we're going to do now, there will be questions and answers. I just want to mention some people might want to go out as we start with questions and answers. What you would do is now switch off your camera again, and then if you want to ask a question, well, if you want to ask a question, keep your camera on and just indicate to us that you want to ask a question, and then we will unmute you, and then you can ask your question. We're not going to spend too long on questions. One can send emails to Rod, and then there will be a few last announcements. So let's see if there are any particular questions. You can just raise your hand and we will, there's one. All right, that looks like Tessa Chamberlain. Tessa, you can talk.
Rod, thanks very much for the presentation. I just want to ask you, when you went back to the lodge, are you still the owner of the lodge? And is that where you plan to stay for many years to come?
Hi, Tessa. Good to see you again. Haven't seen you since the fateful day when the elephants were shot, to be honest. It was in, we were in Masai Mara at a meeting together.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was... yeah, I'm the owner of the lodge. Unfortunately, I have nowhere else to go, no other form of income. So, and not, in fact, no income from the lodge either. So, yeah, I'm at the mercy of the lodge and tourists coming back. I have nowhere else to go. I'm the owner, and yes, I will be there. We've got loads of people and staff relying on us. We've got a lot of things riding on us staying there. So yes, we're not going to go anywhere if we can help it.
And
have to drag me away kicking and screaming. Yeah.
Are you getting a steady flow of tourists, or is it a big struggle?
You know, we've gone through 4 years now of turmoil from 2012 to the end of 2016, even beginning of 2017, where people were not willing to travel to the CAR. And that started to change a little. So this year was going to be a good year until COVID came along. But we have a lot of bookings in theory. So if things come back to normal, hopefully we'll post those down the line and they'll start coming back. But I think the whole tourist industry is going to suffer with this, with COVID, and it's going to take a long time to recover. But,
Yes.
yeah, as a whole.
Thanks, Rod.
We're always the last to get there.
Any
Yeah.
more questions? Stephen Leviton, come in. Unmute. There's Stephen.
Rod, I just asked a question earlier, but I don't think you picked up the chat. Are there crocodiles in the river?
There are crocodiles. There's 3 species of crocodile. There's slender snouted crocodile, dwarf crocodile, African dwarf crocodile, and Nile crocodile. But in the 60s and 70s, they were hunted. Huge numbers were taken out of the big rivers in the Congo Basin, in Cameroon, Congo, Central African Republic, and Gabon. So in the river where we are, we hardly ever see crocodiles. They are there, but we hardly ever see them. But we have seen dwarf crocodiles. They get caught in the fishermen's nets occasionally, and they'll bring them to us, and we release them a little bit away from the main river. And we've seen 1 Nile crocodile swim past on the far side of the river in 11 years. And while we were there, we called our staff and showed them. And some of the staff had never ever seen a crocodile, and they'd lived in the area all their lives. So, yeah, there are crocodiles, but not a lot. And we swim in the river regularly without fear.
Okay, Rod. Tamar wants to come in. Steven, switch off. Tamar, switch on.
Hi, I was just wondering, with the habituated gorillas that you get quite close to, is there any concerns about diseases spreading to those populations from us?
It's a good question. Thanks, Tamar. I thought it was my wife coming to talk to me for a minute, but it's not. It's a good question. Yes, diseases do transmit from humans to gorillas all the time. And we've always been following strict IUCN protocols where we wear a mask. You don't go within 7 meters of the gorillas, no spitting, cough into the sleeve. It's exactly the same as we're doing now with humans in the COVID crisis. But that's basic IUCN grade 8 protocols. Follow those, you won't get COVID. So yes, we've always been doing that, but it's a big concern for human to gorilla transmission, just as it is the other way around. Yeah, that's the
Okay, I'm checking for more questions. Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Tamar. Hands up for questions. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, there's one. Clarissa, please.
Hi, Rod. Nice to see you. You mentioned there were no crocodiles. Are there any hippos? That's my first question. And then the second question is, who's collaring the elephants? What study is that?
Okay, the first question is easy. There are 2 or 3 hippos down where there's a bit of disturbed forest where there's some grass. But for the main part, there's never been hippos there because there's no grass. Hippos are grazers, they need grass. It's rainforest down to the water's edge. So further upriver where you get savanna, I presume there's hippos, but not down where we are. Only a couple, that live next to an old logging company further downriver from us. Who's collaring the elephants? The WWF are collaring they collared the elephants. The actual study, I don't know. I don't know who's going to write it up and what they're doing with the data. But yeah, they put the collars on the elephants.
Okay, we're going to give a last question. There's
Peter
one.
Turner.
Hello, Rod.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Rod. How are you?
Good, man. Yeah.
Great. Rod, the last time I remember you were very passionate about the pangolin conservation program in your rainforest. So my question is, how's that getting on? Is poaching still, at levels that are unprecedented as they were a few years back? Give us a comment on that. Is there any improvement on the poaching?
It's how you define poaching. We are, people are subsistence hunters, and that's not an issue. If people just carried on as they were with net hunting and catching the odd animal that they do, then there would be no problem. It's once you start commercializing it and monetizing it that it becomes a problem. So where we are, we haven't picked up a sign that there's a load of traders out there buying scales. There are certainly people asking for scales, and there's certainly money being added to that. But it's nothing like the numbers that you were getting out of Cameroon from our little corner. I can't speak for the rest of the country. The country is huge, and it's got a lot of rainforest, and I've heard of bag loads getting flown from the east of the country on UNIMAS, the United Nations airplanes, by local people. So we know that there's trading going on, but we are so far removed from it, we don't really see it. But where we are, I think their seizures have been, I think it's about 30 or 40 kilograms in the last 2 years of scales, which is nothing compared to the thousands of tonnage that's coming out of Cameroon and stuff. But it's still a concern, and we still have to keep an eye on it. And that's why our Pangolin project is going. And that's why you must tune in on I think it's 28th, if I'm not mistaken, and listen to Maya and Tessa.
Rod, one question on chat, and then last person, Neil Schuf. There's a question on chat which is asking about, let me just quickly get there. It's about fish. Let me just have a look quickly. Brian was the guy who asked the question. Brian, you want to come in quickly? I'm trying, there's so many comments. Yeah, Brian. It says, hi Rod, have you had much interaction with fish there, or any photos? Must be some interesting species.
Of fish?
Yes, fish, Rod.
Fish, yeah.
Fish,
there are certainly fish there. We eat a lot of fish. The local people catch fish in their nets. I'm not a fisherman, so I've never exploited that. It's not something that I really do. But what interests fishermen is the biggest fish, the most in-demand fish for anglers is the Goliath tigerfish. So we do get those. The biggest one we've had brought to us from a fisherman in the net was 45 kilograms. So that's a big tigerfish. When you see a Zambezi tiger weighing 8 kilograms, I mean, I think the locals would use that as a bait fish here. The biggest, a friend of mine, a guy who lived in Central Africa for 20 years, he's back there now actually, an ex-missionary, Thomas Martinson, he caught a 28 kilogram Goliath tiger at our camp about 10 years ago while we were there. That was really fun. I didn't realize how exciting fishing was, but yeah, that was the biggest one we've ever seen caught on a line. Wow. So yeah, we do get fish. The diversity of fish is huge. We've got photographs of many species that we stopped when we started. We used to stop the local fishermen and just get them to pack out all their fish and take pictures of them. But we've never really identified them all. But it's the Congo Basin, and there's thousands of species.
Yeah.
Brian, I see you are live. Do you want to ask?
Yeah, thank you. No, my question was just that if not just from an angling perspective, but from a kind of naturalist perspective as well, if you had any interactions like you described, taking photographs or just seeing what was coming out in nets or at markets. You know, the diversity there, as you said, would be huge. So I tend to think of fish, you're a birder, so I think of fish are like birds, they just live under the water.
Yeah, except you can't go down there with your binoculars for too long before you need to come up for air.
Yeah, depends on the size of the water body, but yeah, thank you for your answer.
Rod, another chat question, then Neil Schoof, and then we're going to wrap up. One question here, how are you finding the itineraries that combine Odzala discovery camps with Sangha?
How am I finding them? I've never done one myself. The clients love them. A lot of people prefer to spend more time at our place. So instead of doing I think there's an 11-day itinerary, they're doing a 14-day itinerary, so they get a week at our place rather than just the 4 days. Yeah, but it's a nice way to visit because you've got a diversity. You know, the rainforest is not just rainforest. It's diverse. If you're going to go to a savanna and you go to, say, the Masai Mara, and then you go to the Serengeti. I mean, if you say to me, you don't have to go to Odzala because you've been to our place, well, then you're saying to me, you don't have to go to the Serengeti if you've been to the Masai Mara. The places are different. They have their own charm. Yeah, that's how I would compare it. So yeah, I think that the itinerary is a really nice itinerary, and yeah, it's a great way to arrive. Coming up river by boat, you know, it's 4 hours on the river, and you just got, you know, you're heading into the heart of darkness when you're going up that river.
Thanks, Rod. Neil Schoof, last guy to ask a question.
Thanks, Chris. Rod, nice to see you. Chris and team, and Marietta, well done. That was fantastic. I just wanted to know, in terms of logging in the region, and how close is logging getting to where you are, and are there any programs to restrict control, slow it down, or make it more sustainable, please?
Okay, that's it's a complicated question, but where we are, basically the loggers came in 1973. A Slovenian logging company moved in there, a Yugoslavian logging company moved in there in 1973. There was a huge sawmill in Bayanga, which is why the town exists where it does. That sawmill went bankrupt several years ago, and it's only recently in the last 5 years that a logging company has reopened, but they haven't reopened on the same site, but they're using the same concession. So they're logging the same trees, but they're cutting them. They're going to build a mill elsewhere. So they are operating about 40 kilometers to the north of us as their base, and but their concession directly overlaps my concession because the government sells logging and hunting as compatible, but they haven't started logging in the prime areas that we are in. They've logged in the areas to the north of us, which is dry forest, and much easier to get the timber out quickly. I suspect that they won't last through this crisis because logging is yeah, I don't think the logs are going to be in much demand just at the moment in China where their market is. So I'm hoping that this corona crisis is going to destroy the logging company. That's my personal my personal wish for corona. But yeah, they're supposed to log on a management plan. They're supposed to have an effective management plan that's approved. They're supposed to have monitors. In theory, every log that is sold in Europe or Asia has got a number that can be traced back exactly to where it is. These are all European and rules now. And so that's the theory, but there's 100 and it's such a corrupt world we live in, and it's a corrupt business that, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it can be controlled because, as you know, no habitat, no animals.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but trust me, the worst thing about logging is not the killing the habitat, it's the people that come with the logging companies. So you're just bringing more and more people, immigrants into the area, and putting more of a pressure on the bushmeat. We've had lots of pressures put on the bushmeat, you know. I mean, when they chased, for instance, during the coup d'etat, when they chased all the Muslims out, they went with all the cattle. So we haven't had beef in the southern part of the country since 2012. So once you've taken, you've got no beef. There is no alternative except bushmeat. So you know, all these pressures just keep mounting.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Neil. Ladies and gentlemen, before we close tonight's epic talk, I want to thank Marette coming to the picture. Again, like I say, I'm on Zoom 101 and she does all the buttons. So Marette, for helping me tonight, thank you very much. And she will keep on helping. As from tomorrow, we're going to switch to a webinar, and it will still be trial and error. So I would like to remind you of Wednesday night speakers, same time, GMT +2. Let's just get that right, please. Wednesday night would be Paul Telfer, well known in the West Africa and Central Africa circles. Paul is going to talk about his fascinating conservation journey through West and Central Africa. I can assure you it will also be a fascinating talk, so make a note of that, please. Then I want to just ask you to tell your friends about this and pass on this to your friends. So we are unlocking conservation and bring it to you in your home. And we will keep on doing this for a long time. And if you know of people who would like to do a talk, then please contact us and we will fit it in, because we don't intend to stop when lockdowns are over. So Rod, to you, thank you very much. To all of you for your time tonight, your interest and your ongoing support. Thank you. We appreciate it. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Rod.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.